好的，OK，大家晚上好，欢迎来到园林区直播间，我是园林区黑走，很高兴今天在这里和大家见面了。那今天是我们 Web3 Infinity Hackathon 的特别活动 Winners Call 的第2期直播。Hey guys, good evenings. Welcome to the second season of Winners Call in the Web3 Infinity Hackathon live stream. I'm Hazel from Force Community. 那在 Winners Call 的活动中呢，我们将邀请到 Web3 生态中过往黑松获奖团队来到直播间，让这些头号玩家用实战经验为我们讲述那些决胜的技巧和干货。Winners Call is where we invite previous hackathon winners from the Web3 ecosystem to share about their journey with following participants from Web3 Infinity Hackathon. Let these top players of the hackathon tell us the tips and secrets with their real-world experience. 那首先呢，我们的无限 Web3 黑客松作为新加坡峰会的最强周边赛事，目前正在如火如荼的报名当中。那在这里呢，我们也鼓励更多感兴趣的朋友们不要犹豫，向我们投递你的作品。目前我们的报名通道已于7月1日正式开放了，将在北京时间8月17号的晚上23:45前截止报名。那参赛团队均可以通过 DevPost 平台提交符合要求的项目。So firstly, please allow me to introduce the Web3 Infinity Hackathon to you guys. As a crucial sub-event to FIL-Singapore Summit, this hackathon is currently in full swing with registration. So please don't hesitate to submit your project through DevPost before August 17th, Beijing time. The registration portal has already been opened on July 1st. All of those qualified projects are welcome to join us. OK， 那话不多说，接下来我们就回归主题。我来为大家隆重介绍一下今天我们的冠军团队分享嘉宾，他是来自 MetaPod 的 COO Daryl Lim 先生。他们曾经斩获的是 Mercure Hackathon NFT 赛道的冠军奖项。那接下来就请他来为我们介绍他们是如何利用 Hackathon 启动自己的项目的。So now let's get straight to the point tonight. Let me introduce you Mr. Daryl Lim as the COO of MetaPod. As the winner of Mercure Hackathon's NFT track, we are delighted to have him tonight to talk about how to launch the project using hackathons. 那先给大家简单介绍一下 MetaPod， 它是由 Daryl Lim 和 Max Giamardio 于2021年创立的，旨在通过可爱的桌面伴侣为大家提供一种陪伴和快乐的感觉，帮助非加密货币用户过渡到元宇宙。那 MetaPod 得到了领先的开源研究、开发和部署实验室 Protocol Labs 的支持，也是Filecoin 加速器计划的一部分。The project we're going to talk about tonight, MetaPod, was founded in 2021 by Daryl Lim and Max Giamardio to assist the transition of non-protocol users into the metaverse through lovable desktop that provides a sense of companionship and joy. MetaPod is backed by Protocol Labs, a leading open source research, development, and deployment laboratory, and is also part of the Filecoin Accelerator program. 那接下来就让我们开始今天的分享吧。So now let's give the floor to Daryl and start today's sharing. 那这边请月游来帮我们播放一下视频，感谢。
To win a hackathon. And of course, just a quick introduction into our project MetaPills. Hi everybody. Today for the winners call itself, we're basically going to go through how to win a hackathon. And of course, just a quick introduction into our project MetaPills. So I'm Daryl. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I basically handle ops and partnerships, including growth of MetaPulse. I'm basically in the Web3 scene as a growth hacker, as well as an educator. And just some background about me, about how I got into this space is that I've been in a startup for about 7 or 8 years now, and I've previously started a business process automation company called Search. In 2017, got acquired a much larger AI company here in Singapore. Followed by a sorry for the error there, data and blockchain edutech startup called Uplevel in 2019, which got acquired as well. And I'm also running a Web3 VC syndicate called Finex Ventures, where we actually invest in extremely early stage, typically first check blockchain companies itself. So my expertise in hackathons really span from attending a ton of hackathon projects or hackathon competitions, startup pitches, innovation challenges, accelerator programs, you name it, I've probably attended it. Over 80, won a few of them, I would say, and slowly most of them as well. Some of my companies were personally backed by Plug and Play. Even the current one that we're in was actually backed by the Filecoin Techstars program itself in Seattle. And of course, I do a lot of mentoring for early stage startups through Founder Institute itself. Of course, if you'd like to find out more about what I do, some of the projects I've done, a little more in depth because I can showcase all of my slides. Feel free to kind of head over to my personal website at Coda, which is a really awesome tool, a no-code tool, very similar to Notion, but I really like it. So feel free to kind of take a look. So why I'm doing this as well, before I kind of get started, is that I found that a lot of hackathon participants kind of struggle with coming up with like great ideas. To be honest, the difference between Web 2 hackathons and Web 3 hackathons is like Web 2, you get a lot more business folks. Web 3, you get a lot of crypto folks. Oh, I'll say, sorry, developer folks. So if you guys somehow come together, you get a lot of great companies coming out of it. Because in Web 2 hackathons, we're always struggling to get developers in the team, including designers, but you're not lacking any of it in Web 3 hackathons itself. But you lack a lot of business people that actually understand the fundamentals, which is kind of weird. So I just want to say that this is just my opinion. It is a process that I've tried and work. It might work for you, it might not. I can guarantee any success at the end of it all. But what I can show you is like through this process that has helped me, create a company multiple times, and it's a really good test bed to launch great ideas as well. All right, so I just want to put it out there that do take a pinch of salt. So let's get started. So I think the step one, most important of all, is really form a team. I can't emphasize the importance of it. Forming a team is not just getting your friends together or getting someone that has who works in great companies like Google, Microsoft, Coinbase, whatever company you're going to talk about that is slapped on the CV and say that, hey, it's a great guy. It's more of having the synergy to work together, and also the dynamics of the team, whether or not you guys have complementary skill sets, such as you have a business person, a designer, a developer, in your team, so that you're able to kind of delegate and really spread out the task evenly. Because for some hackathons, you only have 48 hours. I know in a lot of Web3 hackathons a bit longer because they're more project-based. But still, you still need that dynamics to make it work. If not, you're going to end up having an extremely technical product or project that has no business fundamentals, or a really business focus, I would say, awesome pitch deck that is not technically feasible, right, for whatever reason. So I think that's a tip that I would like to give. My experience itself is always try to find someone. I like to participate in hackathons on my own, and then find my own teammates through there. I like to kind of put up my own profile, tell them what I'm good at, tell them what I'm looking for. You can choose to come up with an idea, you cannot, because later on I'll talk a little bit more about idea generation. But really, it's trying to find people that you can work with for a really long time, because you understand this is probably the most important step that most people fail to understand, because this is either going to make or break your team, not just for the hackathon, but for the project itself, if you intend to continue this as a team. Because you're going to get a really hard time trying to find others into the team. You're going to lose a lot of progress, and you're going to lose momentum. And when that kind of goes down, people typically just say, you know what, I quit, because there's just no movement whatsoever. So don't forget, forming a team is the most important aspects of all. So what do you do after you form a team itself? Well, it's really to gather ideas. Now, there's a lot of different ways or techniques that you can gather ideas itself. Typically, from a personal level, I like to start with problems that I face personally, or problems that I see others are facing. So basically, empirical, studies, right? Observation, and looking at how people behave, having issues. It could be from a problem perspective, not necessarily like, oh, can this particular blockchain protocol solve this or be applied to this? Don't try to force a solution into something. Start by coming up with the problems first. Like, what are people facing today? I mean, look at some of the fundamental issues of Web3 itself. You have things such as storage. You have issues with onboarding. You have issues with adoption, with user-centric design. You have a much larger issue that does not necessarily focus on Web3, but the world, like sustainability, the future of work. So start like looking at big picture. If you're not able to kind of find problems around you, and of course start by. And of course, one thing I like to advise people is that if you want to kind of generate rapid ideas, always time yourself. What I often see is people like to discuss and debate for way too long, and what you ended up getting is people discussing, debating back and forth, spending hours and sometimes even days trying to get an idea out. And then at the end of it, it's kind of like, oh, you know what, I'm not really into that particular idea. So rather than just talking about it, because there's some people that are more vocal than others, one advice I would give is set like a 10-15 minutes mark. All right, time yourself, and then just have people quietly contributing ideas on their own on either post-it notes. You can use tools such as Miro or Mural, if you know. And then after the time has kind of stopped, you guys go back to the drawing board and look at all the different post-it notes that you guys have come up with, right? And you try to kind of string ideas together, which is idea clustering. And then once you form idea clusters already, that kind of give you a baseline of those ideas itself. And then what you can do is basically start voting, and of course, through voting, you can look at technical feasibility, business viability, and of course, whether or not there's any user ability as well, right? Because you want to make sure that people love it, you can build it, and you can make money off it. That's the three most important fundamentals of any solution that you're going to build, right? So gathering ideas could always start from the problem perspective or an opportunity perspective. I like to kind of look at it both ways, because I don't believe that ideas are only born out of problems, because if they are, all your awesome companies these days wouldn't be born in the first place, because they're not problems. They're born out of opportunities that we've seen, right? Facebook in the beginning was just a fad with a bunch of guys, at Harvard trying to get hooked up and they form Facebook and it became a social networking site. That wasn't a problem in social networking because you already have friends there, right? So don't be so bogged down by just a problem that you solve, but you could also look at the opportunities itself. But of course, if you look at the opportunity, you have to make sure that you're solving something really, really big. If you're solving a really small issue, like say an NFTs for the dancing community, yeah, it might kind of work, but is that really a big problem you're trying to solve here, or is it just a small project? I mean, you can if you want, that's up to you to decide, but that's not going to get you really, really far. You're not going to be a billion-dollar idea. Okay, so what do you do after you kind of get your ideas itself or your solution? So what you really do is start researching, right? When I say research, I don't just mean Googling stuff, going to Wikipedia. I mean trying to find out, are there any competitors out there or alternative solutions out there that people have already started or even developed that you can get inspiration from. I wouldn't want to say copy, but you can get inspired from itself, either by certain features that you like, so take the good, leave the bad out, and improve on it. That's what I typically do. But always try to read up, like, what are the trends telling you? What are some of the secondary research telling you through reports, right? People have done surveys on this, user interviews on this, so leverage on those reports. Now, later on, I'll kind of move on towards validating through primary research itself, but you can also conduct your own primary research right away. So that kind of falls into the validation stage in between research and validation. So obviously you want to validate the problem or the opportunity, right? So you basically ask yourself, or you develop come up with a bunch of hypotheses. For instance, when we started MetaPals, it was trying to understand whether people form emotional bonds with virtual pets. We're not even talking about Web3, we're not even talking about gaming. We're talking about fundamentally, can people form emotional bonds to their pets? And truth is yes. We did a lot of studies, focus groups, user interviews, and realized that people who play games such as Neopets, Tamagotchi in the past, they ended up or even like this really old game called Pet Societies by Playfish, form emotional bonds with their pets because they actually treat them like actual pets, even though they're obviously a digital or virtual object on your screen. And so that was some of this fundamental hypothesis where we're trying to understand. And we set several assumptions as well. We assume that people will form with emotional connections. We assume that people will be willing to interact with their emotional, with their pets. And of course, we assume that people are willing to kind of care for their pets consistently on a daily basis, even, and sometimes even an hourly basis. So hypothesis, several assumption, and validate. Now, how you validate it is either conducting user surveys, which is, it's not that complicated, guys. Just go to any hackathon, you have hundreds or thousands of people attending, blast it out there, Google form, type form, less than 10 minutes, you have 10 questions, and there you go, you have your survey right there, right? Gather less than, you don't need anything more than 50 or 100 people as your respondents to basically gather insights. And one way that I kind of get people to sign up is that I'll just say that, oh, 3 lucky winners will get Filecoin or USDC or Ethereum from me. I'm just kind of like, send it out. I mean, it's like what, $10, $25, $75, so be it. The prizes are usually worth way more than the money you can spend, right? So you have to think out of the box that way. Or conduct user interviews. You don't need a lot of user interviews, 5, 10, 20 if possible, depending on the time that you have. So obviously, the more time you have, the more you have to work with, the more you can kind of spare on the user interviews itself. And of course, what you want to find out is whether your hypothesis and assumptions holds true, and whether or not you need to change your hypothesis completely or change some of the underlying assumptions that you have. What you really want to answer is basically things like, will people want this? Will people pay for this? That's it. That's two fundamental questions that you have, and of course you evolve the questions from there. And step 5 is really start prototyping. Yes, you don't just start coding right away. That is something that I always see as an issue with a lot of Web3 hackathon teams, is you just don't start coding. You probably want to do a lot of pre-work before you start writing even a single line of code, because you realize that it's going to help you save so much time. When we started MetaPals, it was called Crypto Chump. We participated in the NFT Mercury Hackathon last year, and we did not start coding until halfway through the hackathon itself. It was like a 2.5 months, 3 months long hackathon. So halfway through, only we start coding. So before that, prior to that, it was a lot of studies, a lot of research done to kind of know that we are on the right track here. So obviously, when you do the prototype, try to utilize the APIs that's provided to you, and the data sets as well, because that's usually tied to certain kind of prizes. Of course, if you don't find any relevance to the protocol, then perhaps you're either in the wrong hackathon, or if you feel that you're able to create something with just the protocol alone, so be it. But try to find a hackathon that's suitable for you. Okay, this is more applicable to Web3 hackathons. If you're attending Web2 hackathons, that's looking more into the solution anyway, right? So try to reuse code. We borrowed a lot of code from GitHub, as well as Stack Overflow. At the end of it all, is really trying to borrow stuff rather than build stuff from scratch. Obviously, a lot of your integrations, a lot of your smart contracts, especially if you're coding using Solidity, have to be coded from scratch, because there just not a lot of them, or it's even worse if you're coding on you're doing on certain protocols such as Solana, because obviously you have limited community support depending on the language that you use. Common issues that a lot of developers actually face itself, right? But the number one thing about the prototype is that you want to spend as little time as you can building, because guess what? You're validating again. So why do you need to validate again? Well, before that, you're validating your problem or the opportunity you're solving. Now you're actually validating the prototype you built, whether or not your solution actually makes sense. Because theoretically, everything bloody work, but what about, actually building it? Will it practically work? Do people actually want what we build? And do people actually want the thing that we build up eventually? Right, not just theoretical assumptions at the end of the day. So validating 2.0 at the end of the day is really, do people want the shit that we've built? That's it. That's what you're basically going through. So you go through like focus group discussions, user interviews again, but you're really kind of like doing more observations on like telling people, like for instance, for MetaPals back then, Crypto Chump, we basically asked people, okay, so this is the browser extension. Can you play it? Can you play with it? And we just see how they interact. Take note of the comments. They were like, "Oh, this is kind of cute. Can you do this? Can you do that?" And then let them figure out. We didn't say stuff. We didn't give them instructions, because you want to have as little influence as you have over the behavior, as well as taking biasness away. Because the more input you provide, the more bias it ends up becoming. The results through the observation. So that's something that I kind of constantly tell people to do when it comes to validating 2.0 itself, and that is try to observe, just shut the hell up, look at how you're doing it, and then you tell them what you wanted to tell them, be it explaining what a solution is supposed to be or things like that. Or sometimes you could even be asking them, whether or not this particular tool can solve their problem, and just help them go through the tool, right? Just basic objective that you want them to kind of complete. And if they're able to complete the task, that's fine. Or able to figure out how to complete the task using the tool itself, using the solution, that's great. And then as you kind of observe how they use the tool, that's feedback for you, right? On top of them telling you feedback, at the end of it all, observation is essentially indirect feedback that you're gathering for you to improve on either the user experience itself or even certain features that might be redundant because you realize nobody clicks on the button in the top left-hand corner because nobody really cares, since the prototype on its own kind of gets its job done. So you don't need all the other stuff. So it kind of helps you narrow down your focus when you're building the minimum viable product at the end of the day, right? Because prototype is just the basic functionalities. MVP is kind of is deployable, but you want to build a full product, and that's always a no-go. So as I mentioned, always iterate, always improve. So you're gonna constantly going to step 6 and 7 in a cycle for a couple of times. Don't do this more than 3 to 4 times. Again, this is depending on the amount of time you have. In your startup, it's a daily affair. If you're working a project, it's a daily affair. You're working, on something for the long term, it's definitely going to be a daily affair. But if you're doing this in 48 hours or in less than 2 months, well, don't do it too much because you don't have a lot of time. And most of the time for long-term hackathons, people don't really have a lot of time because they're usually working at the same time, right? So you want to limit yourself and only focus and improve on the important part of things. Do not overextend yourself. Nobody cares whether or not you can have features 7, 8, 9, 10. People only care about the first 3 features. Can it get the job done? Does it fulfill the purpose of what it was set out to do in the beginning? If you say that you're building, a storage, a on-ramp for storage provider, or an on-ramp service for data management, or even a tool for developers to basically a no-code tool for Web3 developers, or even things such as you are a particular game, right? What is the base game loop or game mechanic? For us, this is literally having a browser extension that pops out the padding and take care of it. That was literally it. You can feed it, you can play it, and it will move on its own. That was literally our submission itself, right? And that's because that's the core game loop itself. But it might be different for you, it might be different for everybody else, but you don't want to overextend yourself. So this is another important thing that I realized not many people kind of go through. You come up with a pitch deck, right? If you don't know how to come up with a pitch deck, I follow this guy. He used to be the evangelist for chief evangelist for Apple, Guy Kawasaki. It's a 10-page pitch deck. You don't have to copy all of it, but copy the first half of it is pretty good for any kind of pitch deck, because it looks at your problem, your solution, your unique selling proposition. At the end of it all, you're just trying to convince, if I would put on my investor's hat, we're just trying to convince us whether or not your idea has legs, it actually solves something, or is a big opportunity. You're something special about you, because the next thing I'm going to ask is all right, is anyone out there doing it? And what's so different about you, right? Are there alternative solutions? Because there may not be a direct competitor, but there's always an alternative solution. For example, a direct competitor of a credit card company is another credit company. What is the alternative? Cash, right? So never ever say that you have no competitors. These are just things that you can kind of insert into your pitch deck itself. So at the end of it all, it's just trying to convince someone of this story. Less data as well. I don't want to hear about your primary. I don't hear about your research from McKinsey or whatever report, non-fungible. I don't hear all that. Give me real data, right? If you want to put in data, put in real data, things that is from the ground up. That's important. Tell me about a story. Tell me about a user. Tell me about the pain that someone's going through this, that they really want this, right? That they're willing to put money up for it. That's the most fundamental truth, especially right now when funding is really scarce, guys. With the crypto winter, there are still investors out there, but they're just not funding projects like they used to. So you have to really convince them right now. And these are just ways that I can share of how you can increase your fundability, right? Or I would say trying to de-risk the entire investment itself. So step 9, storytelling. So storytelling is as much as you go deep dive or geeky about like, oh, this is what it all does. Some of the crazy stuff they're building, we're building the future of, Web3, the internet, GameFi, metaverse, whatever buzzwords you want to kind of put in. You can do so. I'm not saying you can't, but guys, please at least tell the story. This is for someone that you're building, right? Is it for a user? What kind of user? Why is he going through this? What has been doing before? Have a narrative for the pitch that you're doing, and as part of it, you're kind of like crafting a story. This is really more of an art than a science that I can kind of tell you. So you have to constantly practice, and as I said, practice, because at the end of it all, there's nothing like going live in front of an audience. If you can get away with recording like how I'm doing it right now, that's fine, but you're never gonna do it often. I can tell you that it might work for a hackathon recording your pitch. It might not work for you if you intend to start a company. I've not seen one VC that has allowed me or even accepted me to pitch via recording. It's always live, either online or in person. And there's not a lot of time where I have a script in front of me. I know my deck at the back of my hand because I'm passionate about the things that I talk about. So these are things that you have to be aware of. I mean, right now, I'm talking to you, even though I'm recording it, sure as hell there isn't any script, right? Because these are things that I know by heart already, because it's something that I do every day for the past couple of years. All right, so that's kind of like it all for the bit about the how to win a hackathon. Now, for the next bit itself, I'm gonna kind of talk about MetaPals just a little bit. So, just some insight. So, ever since we've started, we've got funding, from people like Sequoia, Protocol Labs, Techstars, and Blue Yard. But really, how we kind of started was through a master's report, through grad school, participating, and we ideate, because we said, as I mentioned, people form emotion bond with their pets, validating it through the NFT Mercury Hackathon. We got on grants and went through an accelerator program, and we got funding afterwards. And of course, we're moving to production, and we're actually launching officially live on November 23rd. So do hit us up on our social media, on our Telegram, Discord channel, because we definitely love to have more users on board to be in a test. So this is just kind of like showcasing that we've actually done over, this number is old, 1,600 user surveys, 150 user interviews. That there's a lot of people that want to get into crypto that don't really know how to get into crypto. They're not even into it. That actually correlates with the strong interest in pets as well. So that's something that we discovered through our user insights. This is just kind of like the opportunity we are really solving here. So remote work means that more people on their own on the desktop, which is why browser extension is the way to go. Virtual companionship through our message report. Onboarding struggle, every bloody Web3 project. So we're solving this through these guys right here. All these are metapels, and yes, they are going to be created soon. Right now, it's just Shiba, Ichibu, and Tao, which is the cat that you can find on our website. So metapels are basically virtual companions that you love to grow and grow to love. So what we basically try to do is that in under 2 minutes, anyone that has never touched crypto before can download a browser extension, create an account using email address. Do we really need anything else? And automatically it creates a custodial wallet for you using your email. And using that, able to adopt a free NFT pet that you can, essentially purchase other pets via on-ramp, fiat on-ramp. So you don't necessarily have to go through any kind of exchange wallets whatsoever. Take out all that bullshit. In 2 minutes, you're in crypto using traditional methods of onboarding, which is your email address and your password, driven to Google, Facebook, SSO. So this is just a demo. I'm not sure if you can kind of hear it. So I'm not sure if we could hear that early on because this is actually a recording. So I probably have to check that later on, but I'm not going to redo this whole recording again. If you can't hear it, please just go to the website. The demo is there. It basically explains like how we've basically created an overlay on the website, and that's where the pad is going to be. And it's able to interact with the entire web elements of your browser, whatever site you're on. And the mini games that we have is actually within the browser itself. So one of the things is called hide and seek, and that's how I hide behind the tweet button. And of course, you're able to kind of like dress it up and do everything that you've probably done in the Tamagotchi days itself. So that's kind of like the whole idea right there. We've done a lot of user interviews as well. So these are some of the key quotes, key facts. There's a lot of stuff here, so I'm just gonna let you read on your own when you have the time. But fundamentally, what we found is that people, basically females, actually like what we're doing compared to the crypto bros, which is what people usually try to target as their audience. So as our go-to-market strategy is very traditional than what most people go for, which is your Discord as well as your Telegram. So one thing I like to tell people is that know your audience, know them really well, because at the end of the day, all these are going to be your users. So know where they reside on, what they like, what they get the information from. That's how you want to get yourself discovered. So if you have to execute using non-crypto ways, do it. Right? I mean, crypto bro is still target audience of ours, but they represent like 20% of our users. So of course, we kind of showcase how we, adopt users itself. I'm not going to go through this really, because it's basically just says that one way that you can showcase is show how you can go from 1,000 to 100x, right? What does that actually mean? Well, here we go. You basically break down, take a sample size, expand on it. And monetization itself. So this is kind of like how we showcase monetization. We've evolved a lot, obviously, on the hackathon base itself, but pretty much microtransactions, and of course, working with other PFP projects and potential brand collaboration. I'm not going to go through the token model. And of course, competitive landscape, this is something that I usually show people. But at the end of it all is that we don't target crypto bros. So that gives you sustainable game mechanics because people have to actually like the game and not like blockchain. And of course, it's extremely seamless because you just need a email address. We don't need anything else. So this is our team. I'm not going to go through them as well. But the potential for us is really huge when you actually look at browser extension. So we're really wanting to work with people who are really looking at browser extensions. If you are, please hit me up. You can find my email, my contact, my Telegram, all on the personal page that you saw in the earlier presentation. But we can work with PFP projects. We can work with brands, with IP. We can work with extensions. We can work on multiple devices, even though it's not a browser itself. We can work with metaverse, and we are essentially a game, so there will be a social gaming element. So you can really see how there's so many different things that we can work on. And so, yeah, we do fundamentally believe that, as a part of our vision, that this is just a first step along a much bigger journey, and it's really, a companion that's, going to bring you through the metaverse. And so, yeah, we hope we've got your tail wagging, and if it isn't already, so please do hit us up. I think that's just kind of like showcasing you that you can essentially create great projects, or say great companies in this case, from hackathons like the one we've got here. This started in September, and it's going to be a year now. So you can really see how much that we've evolved from just an idea on its own. And of course, we are kind of curious about our roadmap. We're basically starting commencing a public launch in early Q4. We're gonna do like mini game releases, brand partnerships before moving into marketplace, NFT partners, which is a lot of collaboration because we're also creating a game engine, and of course things like social leaderboard mechanics, MetaPass creative modules, which is the game engine I'm talking about, before moving into other devices and browser extension collaborations as well as AR VR, because we do believe that browser extension is the easiest way to go right now, simply because it's what even non-crypto player does before things like AR VR, because that's just way too far-fetched in our opinion right now. All right, so that's kind of sums it up, my presentation for today. So if you're interested in collaborating with us, do hit us up. If you want guidance, mentorship, advice, do hit me up as well, and I'd be happy to hop on a 15 minutes, 30 minutes call with people. I usually kind of offer about 2 hours or 3 hours a week on mentorship. And if you need funding, do hit us up as well. We do first checks only. And so thank you very much. And I hope that you guys would do well, either in hackathons that you participate or in the projects that developing. All right, see you guys. Thanks.
好的，非常感谢 Daryl 给大家带来的精彩讲解。那相信大家看完以后，对于如何借助黑客松的平台来开启自己的项目，一定有了更深入的了解。All right, so thanks so much for Daryl for giving us this amazing sharing. And I believe our audience must have a deeper understanding of how to launch a project using hackathons. 那对于想要重新学习一遍，或者是说错过了本次直播的朋友们，也不用担心，因为我们所有的中英双语对应的直播课程呢，都会上传至园林区的 B 站和 Force Web3 Community 的 YouTube 频道，以供大家参考和学习。For those who wanna watch it again or fail to attend in time, don't worry. All of our live stream videos will be uploaded to our Bilibili and YouTube channel, respectively in Chinese and English. So make sure you check them out. OK，那到这里呢，我们今天的分享就结束了。主持人也要再次鼓励大家来报名参加我们的无限 Web3黑客松，分享丰厚的10万+美金的奖金。同时，也希望朋友们要持续关注我们园林区。我们的下一次直播是在下周三晚上的6点钟，同一时间不见不散。That's all for today. I'd like to once again encourage you to sign up for our Web3 Infinity Hackathon and share the huge prize of over $100,000. Meanwhile, don't forget to tune in our live stream channel. Our next live broadcast will be at the same time this Wednesday. See you guys at 6 p.m. Okay. Bye.